Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley, and I am the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. Research indicates that the biggest predictor of happiness, at least for most of us, is the quality of our relationships. And yet so much of how we are wired can get in the way of good relationships. Things like pride and stubbornness. When we lean on those, we may erroneously conclude that we should be harsh and teach our partner a lesson. Spoiler alert, you'll hear from the expert on this episode that harshness is never a good idea, even though it may feel right or even vindicating. So since these skills are not taught in schools, how do we go beyond our knee-jerk responses and thrive as a couple? Fortunately, I know just the guy to ask. Terry Real is an internationally known psychotherapist and a best-selling author who has written some of the most important books contributing to the field of individual and couples psychotherapy. His latest book is called Us, Getting Past You and Me to Build a More Loving Relationship. Consistent with his incredible work, Terry brilliantly cuts to the core of how our brains work and shows how we can better use those brains in our relationships. Lori Gottlieb, Esther Perel, and even Bruce Springsteen, who actually wrote the foreword, love this book, and I believe you will too. And I'm confident you'll be captivated listening to Terry, who is a superior storyteller and the embodiment of kindness, wisdom, and strength. So listen in as Terry and I talk about how to get past the stumbling blocks and how to find our way back to us. Terry Real, welcome to Super Psyched.
Thank you. I'm super psyched to be here with you. I bet everybody says that, but it's true. I am.
I'm so glad. I have been such a fan of your work. And as I was telling you, your work has informed so much of my work, whether it's in working with men or couples. And I'm delighted that you have Us coming out shortly. You've written so many good relationship books. And I'm wondering what compelled you to write Us, yet another fine work from you. And what are you hoping the readers will get as a result of having read Us?
Look, let me start with neurobiology. What we know is that the autonomic nervous system scans the body 4 times a second. Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? And if the answer kicks out, yeah, I'm reasonably safe, we stay seated in the part of our brains I call the wise adult part of us, prefrontal cortex, the most mature part of the brain, here and now, thoughtful, deliberate, able to be wise, able to make smart choices. If the answer is no, I'm in danger, we flip to a much more primitive part of the brain, subcortical, limbic system, and amygdala. Our response is automatic, fight, flight, fix, knee-jerk response. And that knee-jerk response will be the way that you adapted to the trauma in your childhood. Let me say that again. Our automatic knee-jerk response, when we get heated, comes directly out of our childhood trauma and how we adapted to it. We lose the us. We lose the wisdom of relationship. The person we're speaking to is no longer the person we love. They're the enemy. And it's a win-lose, zero-sum game in which one of us is the winner and one of us goes home crying. This is not a good moment for your relationship. And so what this book is about is equipping ordinary people to be able to move into what I call relational mindfulness, remembering love. In the heat of that moment, how to take a breath, count to 10, take a break, take a walk around the block, do whatever you need to do to get re-centered in the wise, non-trauma-based, non-triggered part of you that can use the skills of relationship. Look, I give workshops all over the country, and I have slides like everybody. And my favorite slide of the workshop is this one, Adam. Other workshops teach you skills. We deal with the part of you that won't use them.
That's amazing.
That's the triggered part. And we adapt as children to what's thrown at us. I teach my students always to be respectful of the exquisite intelligence of that adaptation. We call it the adaptive child part of it. You did exactly what you needed to do to survive back then. Good for you. But I have a saying, adaptive then, maladaptive now. You were the hero. You were the star. You depended on no one. You were the pleaser. You were the scapegoat. Whatever you were, you're still doing it in your adult relationships, and it's no longer working for you. This is a way of identifying that and moving beyond it. Can I give you an example?
Please.
I always give the same example, forgive me, but it's so perfect. Absolutely true story. I deal with couples on the brink of divorce. That's
Yep.
Couple on the brink of divorce. The guy's a chronic liar. His wife says, if you ask him what kind of shoes he's wearing, he'll tell you they're sneakers. I mean, the guy will just lie about anything his whole life. And she's ready to divorce him. You can't live with that. So I have a saying, show me the thumbprint and I'll tell you about the thumb.
Mm-hmm.
This is a guy who lies. What does that mean? He evades. He's the kind of guy, I ask him, I say to him, the sky's blue. He goes, well, it's aquamarine. He's one of those guys, right? Champion evader.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm relational. If I know, we call it your relational stance. If I know that you're an evader, that's your adaptation, then who were you evading? And my next question is, who tried to control you?
Yeah.
Sure enough, his dad, military man, how he ate, how he sat, his posture, his friends, the courses he took at school, the clothes he wore on his bed, everything. I say to this guy, how did you deal with your controlling father? And he looks at me and he grins and he says, I lied.
So
Adaptive then, maladaptive now. Now here's a great story. Here's a great moment. So we float all this. We make it conscious the same way I do in the book. I make it conscious. Readers go through a process where they learn to shake hands with their adaptive child part and get to know it. So we make it conscious. This is where you learn to lie. And it's about to cost her your marriage. They come back 2 weeks later. She had sent him to the grocery store to get, 6 things. True to form, he comes back with 5.
Uh-huh.
Where's the milk? He says, every muscle and nerve in his body was screaming to say they were out of it. And in this moment, and that's where recovery is, it's in the moment. In this moment, he took a breath, screwed his courage in the sticking post, got through years of that early childhood training, looked at his wife and said, I forgot.
Wow.
She burst into tears. Absolutely true story. And she said, I've been waiting for this moment for 25 years.
Oh my God.
That's what this book is about. Moving beyond your knee-jerk automatic adaptation to something more mature, more relational, more loving, and more skilled. And how to get that done. Move beyond you and me, the adversarial individualistic contest, to the us, the whole, remembering love, remembering the relationship and your place in it.
That's brilliant. My iOS software on my phone just upgraded, and you're describing an ancient technology that we've adapted to using because it's become our kind of one trick ponies in love, that we've known this is the only way I can adapt. And it was contextual. It no longer works. And one of the things that you do is you provide, it sounds like, quite frankly, software upgrades in the context of the most important aspects of our life. And that is our relationships. We can have everything going right. And if our relationship sucks, we're in deep doo-doo. We may have victories financially, vocationally, but the victories will be hollow and anticlimactic if this one area of our life isn't working. Is that consistent with your perception?
Sure. It's where the book starts. We're born to be relational. Little infants in the first weeks of life seek connection. Our bodies physically are healthier. Intimacy is as important a fact for our physical health as is smoking or exercise. We are born to be authentically connected. Our culture beats that out of us. We do not live in a relational, cherishing culture. We live in an individualistic culture. And the other part of the book is I take on the toxic culture of individualism. I write about the history of the idea of individualism. I write about the neurobiology of individualism. We human beings, the idea of a freestanding individual is total myth. What we know from neurobiology is we human beings co-regulate each other. There's no such thing as self-regulation. We co-regulate. We live in a pack. We live in community. And what happens is that when we're trauma triggered, when the heat comes on, we forget the wisdom of that gestalt, that whole. And it's me, 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 me. We move to protect ourselves. We move to assert our power. And we lose the connection and the love to our own detriment. And this is about, in those very moments, how to right ourselves. One of the things I say, Adam, is our relationships are our biosphere. We're not above it. We're in it. We breathe it. And you can pollute your biosphere by being selfish or angry or having a temper tantrum, but you'll breathe in that pollution in your partner's withdrawal or lack of generosity or payback. You can't escape. The delusion of individualism is that we stand apart from nature. And it fuses with I've written for 40 years about patriarchy, which tells us not only do we stand apart from nature, but we can control nature. Those are crazy ideas. Whether the nature you're trying to control is your wife or your kids or your body or your thoughts or whatever. You're not above nature. You're in it, dummy. Wake up and have what I call ecological humility. I can't force my will upon you. We're a team. Stop thinking like an individual and learn the sophisticated skills that become available to you when you remember that you're a team. That's what this is about.
So you're speaking to so many important tenets of a happy life, a meaningful life, a connected life. And the term us, gosh, 2 letters that could not have been better used as your title. And you've even said that intimacy is our birthright. And yet somehow this birthright, this thing that we should be able to rock, is so elusive. It's so evasive. And we've been handed ideas around strength and what that looks like. And you've powerfully argued it looks like vulnerability. It doesn't look like harshness. And I was wondering if you could describe, why is it that in spite of the fact that it's our birthright, how have we somehow lost the way? And what do we need to do to find it?
Well, since you mentioned it, I have to zero in on that one thing.
Sure.
Because I want to be value added for your listeners. And
by all means,
what I want to say is, if you get only one thing from this podcast, get this. There is no redeeming value in harshness. There is nothing that harshness does that loving firmness doesn't do better. Whether it's to your kids, to someone you love, whether it's between your ears. So many of the people I work with are harsh with themselves and they think it's a virtue. Loving firmness is the ticket. If it's harsh, it's off. Take a breath and be more kind. I'm an old fart. I'm 71. And at 71, I have a deal with the universe. If it's not kind, I'm not interested. And I say that to the voice in my own head. Hey, adaptive child, Terry, because that's the part of me. You may have a point about something I need to pay attention to. Say it kindly, and I'll listen to you. But if it's not kind, think a little more about how you're going to say it.
Can you give another example of even how we talk to ourselves, since it all begins there? How might you put a loving editing pen to a statement? Let's hear what a harsh statement might sound like, and let's hear Terry's edit.
Yeah, it's funny you should talk about pens, because I'll tell you a story. Here's the story. It's a story about pens. I was giving a talk. It was the end of the day. I was autographing books, and one of my handlers, Terry, you're going to miss the plane. Oh my God. Okay. I gather up all my books and whatever. And I'm on the plane, beautiful day, shoes off, glass of Chardonnay, feeling great. And I feel this cold, wet splotch on my chest. And I look down and my shirt is black, wet black. I was signing books with a Sharpie, and I put it in my pocket without the top. And I ruined permanent ink. I ruined it. And it was one of my several $100 going on Oprah Winfrey shirts.
Totally.
I wrote about this, and I have a history of depression. I have trouble with self-esteem. I was harshly treated as a child. One of the things I say is that we tend to treat ourselves the way we were treated. We hold ourselves the way we were held. I was held harshly. I was harsh. Back in the day before recovery, and when I say recovery, I mean relational recovery, not addiction recovery.
Yep.
Back in the day before I learned to do this work, that ruined shirt could have triggered me beating up me into a 5-day depression. Truly. And on this day, after doing this work for years, the inner voice started, I can't believe it. You've got ADD. You're always breaking things, ruining things. You can't keep track of anything. You're stuck, blah, 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 blah. That's my adoptive child. The harshness is stored in the adoptive child part of it. Your wise adult is not hard. I looked at that little Terry, because it's just an immature part of me. You don't meet harshness with harshness. Harshness with firm love. I looked at that little guy, and here's what I said. Hey, listen, man. The same ADD brain that ruined the shirt is the brain that wrote the books that were being autographed.
Wow.
So how about you cut me some slack? And it did.
Wow.
This is what I call standing up to the harsh voices inside of you. You know what? You may have a point. I can be sloppy. I can be more detail-oriented, but I don't need to be today. One of the things I say, Adam, and I've said it through all 3 of my books, contempt is not the thing that comes before emotional violence. Contempt is emotion. And I invite your listeners today to step into what I call a contempt-free life. You're not contemptuous to yourself, and you're not contemptuous to other human beings. Ask yourself before you speak to yourself or before you speak to another, does this fall below basic respect? And if the answer is yes, it does, I have great news for you. Shut up. Take a walk around the block and get recentered. But there's no reason, and I lived this way. I had terrible self-esteem. I loathed myself for years as a young man. And it is peaceful between my ears now. I want to tell you, living this way beats living that way to pieces. And I earned it. I learned how to do it, just like our listeners and my readers can learn how to do it. You de-harshify yourself. You just don't indulge it. Terry, you're fat. No, I could lose 10 pounds. Terry, you're stupid. No, I could read a few more books. It's not Pollyanna bullshit, but you stand up to those harsh distortions and you replace them with a more humane, realistic picture. And that's work that you do in your relationship to you. And you could work on your relationship to you just like you work on your external relationship.
And you're disabusing the listener of the idea that being harsh with ourselves, which is so often lionized and made into a virtue, is actually going to harm the relationship. And I can only imagine that not only has the space between your ears benefited from you being more self-compassionate, wise, and loving, but that your beloved wife, Belinda, has probably benefited as well. You're nodding. Can you tell me about what you imagine she would say about you being a kinder Terry to Terry in the context of your loving relationship?
Belinda has often said, one of my great jobs on earth is dealing with your grandiosity. Your partner can be a wonderful, alarm bell.
Totally.
Here's a tip for your listeners that I go into in great detail in the book. Look, all relationships are an endless dance of harmony, disharmony, and repair. I got this from infant observational research. The child is then gas or annoy, and then the child is flipping out and the mother's flipping, and then the pacifier is accepted or whatever. This is what real researchers looking at real mothers and infants see over and over again. Ed Tronick is the leader.
I thought.
Harmony, disharmony, and repair. And we're desperate for the skills in moving from disharmony into repair again. Our culture doesn't even acknowledge disharmony, let alone how tough it is. And one of the things I teach my readers is the reality of relationships. Not to go off, but I have a phrase. I talk about normal marital hatred.
Love that term.
I want to tell you, for 20 years, I've gone around the country, the world, and I've talked about normal marital hatred. And not once has someone come backstage and said, "What do you mean?"
Yeah. It's almost like a good comedian is often saying what we're thinking, but we would never say it. You've said normal marriage hatred. No one would ever say it, but you've kindly identified it. Everyone gets it.
Everybody knows what I mean. Now, look, when you're faced with a partner who's in a state of disharmony, okay, they're upset with you. One of the things I teach is drop what you're doing. You have one job, repair.
Yeah.
Get that person back into harmony. This is not a conversation. Everybody gets this wrong. This is not a two-way dialogue. This is one-way street. You are at the service of the unhappy partner. You want to make them happy. Know why? Well, here's why. Because, drum roll please, you move with them, dummy. This is thinking ecologically. When Belinda and I have a fight, we usually separate for 15, 20 minutes. We take a break.
Sure.
And then one or the other of us, and bless us, we take turns. We'll kind of come downstairs, whatever, and say, "Look, do you want to fight? I don't really want to. I don't want to fight. Do you want to fight? Listen, what do you need, honey? Let's get out." And then Belinda will say, "Well, you really could blah, 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 blah." You're right. I'm sorry. I owe you an apology for that. And she'll go, "Well, what do you need?" And I'll go, "Well, you could say you're sorry about blah, 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 blah." She'll go, "All right. Want some tea?" "Yeah, good." And we're done. Now, the reason why that happens is because I am thinking of one thing. Ready? How am I going to spend my evening? That's what I'm thinking about. Do I want to spend my evening fighting with this woman? Or do I want to spend my evening cuddling on the couch, watching something great on TV or whatever? And this is what I call keeping your wits about you. This is staying in your wise adult. What am I about? Keeping your eyes on the prize. What's more important to me? Proving that I'm right or having a great evening? And that wise adult part of us, the answer is having a great evening. The adaptive child part of us is right down the line. And we have to have the skills of taking a breath and go, "You know what? I don't really give a shit about who's right. Let's have a nice time." That's maturity and that's recovery. And that's what our culture doesn't teach. Why? Because, Adam, we live in a narcissistic, addictive, anti-relational, patriarchal, power over a society. That's what I take on in the book, our culture of toxic individualism. It's all about power over, which is a delusion. We replace that with the wisdom of power with, not over with. I am not over nature. I'm not over my wife. I'm not over my relationship. I'm not over my kids. I am with them. We will trade in the delusion of control and power for the wisdom of cooperation, or we may die as a species on this planet. I mean, it goes all the way out to how we treat nature itself and the environment we're in. It's really about having an environmental humility, whether we're talking about the world we live in or whether we're talking about the family we live in. It's the same perspective and the same set of skills.
It's so difficult in real time. I mean, it's easy for us to talk about this idea of like, let's find a way to be wise and override the desire to be right. And yet when we're in that, we can become somewhat blinded. What are some real life tools that can help us override our basic system defaults that suggest that we should stay in the fight and make sure that they know we're right? How can we do that?
I detail 5 losing strategies. Being right. And when you're in a state of disrepair, this is what's going to make it better. Proving which one of us is right. Good luck with that. Controlling my partner. I'll be happy if you own me. Unbridled self-expression. Ventilating. Let me tell you just how miserable I am that you blah, 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 blah. Let me throw in the kitchen sink. Retaliation. Let me hurt you the way you hurt me. And withdrawal. Let me pull down the shades and you can get lost. I want people to identify what I call their losing strategy profile. When you're heated, when you're in your adaptive child, which of these do you go to? Proving you're right, controlling your partner, expressing yourself, retaliation, or withdrawal. And this is one example, the whole book is filled with it, of getting to know this adaptive child part of you, forming a relationship with it, being familiar with it, so that when it comes up, you know what's going on. It's about taking what's automatic and beginning to make it something that you have a frame around, a consciousness around. It's very interesting. We used to think that once a neural pathway was set, it was closed forever.
Right.
And as you know, the name of the game in therapy these days is what we call neuroplasticity.
Definitely.
That you can open up those old habits in the brain and create new pathways in the brain. We even know how you do that. There are 2 things that need to happen. You have to make the implicit explicit, and you have to have some sense of disconfirm, of recoil, of no, I don't want to do that. Let me tell you a story. I had a guy, verbal abuser, 20 years. And I had one session with him and his wife. And like most verbal abusers, the story was it came over him too quickly, he can't control it. So show me the thumbprint. I'll tell you about this one. Who was the mean one in your family growing up? Oh, my stepmother. Tell me. I have this on film. Tell me about her. Meanest, nastiest, most abusive. Oh, disgusting. Oh, so that's where you learn. Excuse me? She taught you how to be mean and nasty and be a verbal abuser. Are you aware that when you abuse your wife like that, you have become your stepmother? And he goes, holy shit. That's making the implicit explicit and having a recoil. He says, for someone to paint me with that cloth, it just embarrasses the shit out of me. That embarrassment is called remorse, guilt, healthy shame. Good for you. If you'd had that embarrassment up front, it would have stopped you from savaging your wife. That is a good feeling, not a bad feeling. I say to him, do you have a picture of your stepmother? Oh, no. Can you get one? Yeah. Okay. You have my permission to rage at your wife. I can't stop you. I'm not there. But you have to promise me you do this first. Before you open up your mouth and savage her, I want you to take out a picture of your stepmother. And I want you to say, chokes me up. I want you to say, look her in the eye and say, being like you right now is more important to me than my wife is. You say that and then have at it. And he says to me, that's just not true. She isn't more important than my wife. That will stop me in my track. And I want you to know that was one session that was 17 years ago. He has never been abusive since.
What a powerful experience. And one of the things I love about you is that you provide, I mean, your name could not be more appropriate, a real experience for the person, not just mere insight, not just mere forensics. You actually allowed him to have a different experience by him coming to the conclusion, there's no way in hell I wish to contribute to anyone's life the way my stepmother did to mine. And I often ask people if they're going through a divorce, what's more important, your hatred of your ex or your love for your children? In other words, will you poison your ex more than you will love your children? And your way of doing that with the couple, and he had basically decided he was a slave to his stepmother all these years, and you freed him. It was an emancipation. That's amazing. One of the things that I also love about your contributions is you've gone into great depth around the idea of requesting, not just being a person who is just a wise adult and compassionate, but also you've said something to the effect of you can't be angry for something you haven't asked for. And you've also said that criticism requires no vulnerability, asking does. And you've come up with great tools through which people can make requests. I was wondering if you could speak about requests and how to make them really well.
Sure. Here's the thing. Our brains are negatively biased. What we notice is what's wrong. It's survival. You notice what's wrong when you're out in the jungle so the tiger doesn't get you.
Right.
What we notice is what's wrong. And what comes to us naturally is complaint. The way we try and get more out of our relationship, by and large, is complaining to our partners about what they've done wrong. This has got to be the worst behavioral modification program I've ever done.
If I complain enough, then I'll get what I want.
So this is particularly true for women because women carry the dissatisfaction generally. Women want more intimacy out of their relationships than many men have been socialized to give. That's a whole other topic, but don't complain about what the person is doing wrong. Teach them what right would look like. Every complaint has in the heart of it the potential request. Everything that's wrong has a this would be right implicit in it. And I literally have people first run to the table and jot down the complaint, what you want to say, and then flip the paper over to the other side and turn it into a request. So it's as simple as this. I don't like how you're talking to me. Turns into this. Hey, I want to hear what you have to say, honey. Could you turn down your voice so that I can actually listen to it? Two different ways of saying the same thing. But which one's going to get you more what you want?
Absolutely.
So I say to women in particular, I want more assertion up front and less resentment on the back end. In our culture, our relationship to relationships, including our relationship to ourselves, is passive. You get what you get and then you complain about it. I want it to be active. Shape what you're trying to get. Look, for example, John Gray made millions of dollars on this one point. Not that I'm jealous or anything, but women want empathic listening and men move into problem solving. Thank you, John. Okay. Now, I wrote this for O Magazine. There are three forms of listening. There's problem solving. Well, if you tried this, if you tried that. There's empathy. Sorry, that sucks. Tell me more about it. And there's sharing. Oh, your knee, my knee is killing me. You're adolescent. There's nothing wrong with any of those forms of listening. What's wrong is that they don't get negotiated.
Right.
So stereotypically, the woman wants empathy and the man does problem solving. And in 5 minutes, they're ready to kill each other.
For sure.
Here's the way out.
Mm-hmm.
Woman to man, honey, I need to vent. I need about 10 minutes. Now, already that's very relieving for the guy. 10 minutes, not till 4 o'clock in the morning.
Sure.
Okay, I need 10 minutes. Here's what I want you to do. Don't solve my problem. Don't give me advice. Don't tell me what to do. Just be nice to me and curious, like a girlfriend. Honey, that sucks. There. I could see why you feel like that. Tell me more about it. Honey, would you be willing to give that to me for 10 minutes? Sure. Okay. And he does. But he would never do it unless you instructed him to in advance. I tell women in particular, there are 3 phases to getting what you want in your relationship. The first I call daring to rock the boat. That's the assertive phase. Listen, this is really important to me. You damn well better pay attention. Okay. Once you've got your partner's attention and they're trying, drop the aggression. Nobody does that. Stop criticizing and help them out. I call this helping them win. Okay, this is how I would like you to listen to me. Let me teach you. And then the third phase is making it worth their while. I tell people in general and women in particular, celebrate the glass 15% full.
Can you say more about that? How does one celebrate 15% full?
For example, woman wants to hear more about a guy's feelings. So guy says, well, I was stressed. And 9 out of 10 partners will go, and it's not a feeling. Tell me a goddamn feel. No. That's a warm up. Oh, thank you. That's great. Tell me more about what stress means. You work with it. You don't jump on the bandwagon and criticize it. When partner B starts to give partner A what partner A wants, does partner A swoon in their arms and say, thank you, dear? They do not. They criticize. They devalue. They reassert the old homeostasis by cutting that little green shoot of effort off at the knees. Positively reinforce the effort. Don't squash it. So the first is very assertive. You better make this effort. The second is instructive. Let me teach you what this is. Not because I'm the expert on relationships, but because I'm the expert on Terry operating instruction. Got to do it with humility. Women get that wrong. It's not that I know more than you do about relationship. I know more than you do about me. So let me humbly ask you to do it this way. And then 3, once the person starts to give it to you, encourage them, don't discourage them.
You know what I love about that is it really actively engages an overriding of our negativity bias. And by looking at the 15% that went well, the 15% that's full, it kind of falls into an axiom that I love, which is what we appreciate appreciates. So that 15% that we appreciate will be 30% next week and maybe 45 the week after, and who knows? So I love that idea of really, really celebrating those wins in that way. So easy to say, almost Hallmark Cardi and cliche to say, but if we can actually execute on this on the regular, there are huge, huge gains to be made.
Yeah. And men in particular are criticism phobic. You start criticizing a guy and they're going to fight back or shut down. So you have to move into the vulnerability yourself of working with your partner rather than taking out a baseball bat. It's very self-protective to criticize somebody. There's no vulnerability in criticizing somebody. There's a lot of vulnerability in saying, honey, could you do it this way instead of that? They may say no, and you could get hurt, but that's okay. You'll live. I call it sustainable hurt.
Yes.
Well, a lot of what we do in our relationships is self-protective and allowing ourselves to really move in beyond our comfort zone. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to be loved.
Well, you know, at the outset, you talked about the am I safe times 4. Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? That's over. It seems like almost everything that you're about is allowing us to override that self-absorption of am I safe and lean into, in a trusting and loving way, the other and finding a way of coordinating with them over time so that we become a more functional us.
Beautiful. And keeping your eye on the us and not just me. Because the us will sustain you. Me has a very short shelf life. We both work with a lot of Silicon Valley high power types. This is one for men. I talk to men about the difference between gratification and relational joy. Gratification is a short-term hit of pleasure. You know, you make a killing in the stock market, you make a deal, a pretty girl smiles at you, gratification. Pleasure is great in its place. Relational joy is the deeper down pleasure that's about being, not doing. It's just about being connected. I had the joy, and it isn't Bruce, I got to say, Bruce Springsteen wrote the forward.
I know.
I'm proud to say.
And I was wondering what it was like for a New Jersey boy to get Bruce to write your forward, but maybe for another interview.
Yeah, well, he's very open about it, the work that he and Patty did with me. It's very beautiful.
Wonderful.
I was dealing with another guy, a rock star, and he told me when he was on stage, he was alive. And when he was home with his wife and kids, he was in sleep mode, like a computer. And he would be depressed. And his kids, Daddy, then go away. And I talked to him, as I talked to so many men, about what I call becoming a real family man. It's a foreign concept. And I got him to start saying yes instead of no, and being with instead of being asleep. And he told me, and I tell this to guys a lot, he came in one day and he said, I just spent the best day of my life. And I said, tell me. And he said, all Sunday, my wife, me, and my 5 kids, we all stayed in our PJs from sunup to sundown. And we played the most sadistic game of Monopoly.
That is awesome.
10 hours. And he said it was the best day of my goddamn life. That's relational joy. And that's what this culture is short of.
You know, it's so interesting because by comparison, being on stage in front of 20,000 people, being the rock star and getting that love versus being in PJs and playing sadistic Monopoly for 10 hours and getting that love. I think of the end of the Hurt Locker, another provocative moment where he realizes, oh my gosh, I can't just live this domesticated life now. I need to return to the war zone. What you were able to do was somehow provide stewardship and allow him to have a real experience rather than perhaps what would be more of a faux experience on stage with 20,000 people adoring you. Instead, having an intimate experience in PJs that's more sustainable, deeper.
And ultimately more satisfying.
Ultimately way more satisfying.
This is what we live for, is connection. Intimacy is the pearl of great price. Intimacy is the panacea. I talk about human connection as being the cure. Human connection is the cure for addictions. What we self-medicate, when we self-medicate, is the loneliness of not being connected. And intimacy is the cure for most psychological issues. Intimacy, a good relationship with oneself and a good relationship with others. There are people like me who get on stage and somebody in the audience will say, well, you don't think what you're saying is a panacea, do you? And they go, well, yes, this is the panacea.
Intimacy.
Intimacy is what we are born for. It's what we're designed for. It is the only thing that will truly make us happy.
So from that, I'm going to ask my final question. And what could a listener do to increase their awareness about intimacy on their dashboard in life? What could they do to invite more of it into their relationship? What are just some simple, actionable things that a person listening could do? And maybe even mentioning some of the things that might deter them along the way as they're trying for this big game.
Well, first of all, I got to put in a few plugs.
Heck yeah.
What can you do? You can read my damn book. It's
damn straight.
It's coming out June 7th. It's called Us Getting Past You and Me to Build a More Loving Relationship. You can take my Us workshop, go to terryreal.com and find out about it. We're doing online workshops for people all over the world. In terms of your daily life, everybody talks about a relationship take work, but nobody tells you what it is. Here's what I want your listeners to get. The work of relationships is not even day to day. It's minute to minute. Ask yourself, in this minute, right now, am I going to go to the left or am I going to go to the right? Am I going to go with my knee-jerk, maladaptive, adaptive child, the automatic responses, being right, control, ventilating, whatever? Or am I going to take a breath, remember the relationship? I call it remembering love. Remember that the person I'm talking to is someone I care about. Remember that I live in this household too, happy house, happy spouse. It's in my interest that we get along and then make a move that's more mature. In this moment right now, I'm at the crossroads. Which am I going to choose? And it's your choice. So that's what I would say. I'll give you, if I may,
Please.
my last story of our time together. So let's take the issue of contempt. I live in Boston, worst drivers in the country. I'm a New Yorker. I'm telling you, worst drivers. In New York, somebody cuts you off and they're a pig, but at least they speed up and leave you alone. In Boston, somebody cuts you off, drops down to 20 miles an hour, sticks their butt in your face and makes you wait there. So somebody does that. And I'm looking at their fat little head through the, and I'm doing that Star Wars laser beam thing, blow up their head. Now, as I say, I'm from Jersey. I lived in New York forever. In my younger day, I would have pulled alongside this person, rolled down my window and let them know what I thought. Nowadays, as I look at that fat little head and I feel that rage and contempt and judgment, I breathe myself down. I come down from the one up. A lot of psychotherapy works on coming up from the one down of shame. We also work in the work I do of coming down from the one up of superiority and grandiosity.
Yeah.
I come down from that judgment and rage. Literally, I breathe. We do a lot of breathing. I breathe into my work. I breathe myself down. And here's what I say. To that fat little head, I say, you may not deserve this. You may not deserve me coming down from that. You may deserve somebody rolling down the windows. But I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for me. I grew up in a contempt-drenched family. I internalized that contempt, and it became a depression that haunted me for decades. I played out that contempt in relationships and burned out more than a few of them. I've had enough. Not today. I don't need it. And I bring myself into peace, into centeredness, into maturity for my sake. That's a moment of recovery.
Wow. So powerful, Terry. And I've been so looking forward to seeing you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with my listeners who undoubtedly will benefit from hearing what you have to say. Hopefully they'll put into practice. I do believe that it all starts, of course, in the context of our loving relationships with ourselves and our primary loved ones. And that is probably the roadmap to a better world for everyone and all stakeholders. So you're really doing your part in repairing the world through repairing people's relationships with themselves and their most intimate ones. Thank you for all you do, Terry. I'm beyond grateful.
Oh, thank you, Adam. It was a lovely interview. And you know, one of the things I say is we may not be able to bring peace to the Ukraine or to the Middle East, but we can bring peace to our living rooms and bedrooms. So start there.
What a beautiful prayer. This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe.